What's up, everybody? What's up, everybody? You know what today is? It is Wednesday, December 8th. It is the solemnity, the great feast of the Immaculate Conception. And it is episode 9 out of 10 in our Father Lasance series on PaleocratDiaries. We're rocking out today, just like we do every single time, every Monday, every Wednesday, every Friday. Not only on Me of Catholic, also on Reason and Theology. And look, I gotta tell everybody, you know, it's kind of crazy. A lot of folks over at Reason and Theology, they've never seen the Enthusiasm series. The people who are over here who watched Enthusiasm loved it, gobbled it up bit by bit by bit every single time, and who are totally in love with the Lasance series. They're like, what? You're talking about secular age on Reason and Theology? Yes! I'm on both. Because the empire is expanding. It's totally true. I have it on good authority. And by good authority, I mean my boy, Timothy Flanders. And Timothy Flanders, by the way, if you missed Terror of Demons on Monday, it was mega dope. Oh, it was dope. The whole gang was there. We were rocking it out. It was ultimately the greatest manifesto for the apostolate. You gotta check it out. You gotta check it out. Powerful, moving forward, right, for Christ the King. Because what do? Every single time we rock this mic, what do? We make a commitment. Take a knee for Christ the King. You take a knee, you advance forward, and how do we do it? Heartfelt resolutions, never give up, keep on smiling, and remember that one day we shall die. In fact, I've got to tell you, we're not gonna do too many introductions today. We're not going to do a whole bunch of banter. I will show the comment section. I will show the Telegram. We got to move forward because there's a lot going on, including, by the way, prayers for Phoebe. That's my sister. My sister has stage 4 breast cancer. It's metastasized. It's all through the body, okay? And she's been battling it now for 4.5 years. And I say battle, you know, I know the debate that people have over using war language when it comes to cancer, right? I get it. But you know, when you've got stage 4 breast cancer that's flooded your body and you got 50 tumors in the brain, it's legit to say that there's a battle there. It's a battle of the heart. It's a battle of the body, battle of the mind and the spirit, your spiritual life. And my sister's been waging this remarkable war with a smile, typically. But sometimes there's a lot of pain. And in a rare instant, okay, in a rare one, and I'll show you right now, she looked like that. I showed pictures. I made a video. In fact, I want to thank the thousands and thousands of people who watched that video on Twitter. I made a video from the introduction to our last show where it was urgent right away, right out of the gate. I got the call 20 minutes ahead of the show about my sister going to the hospital. And I said, look, we got to pray right now. And we did. Okay, we actually prayed. We prayed on the show. We don't do that too often where we stop everything and just pray, but we did. And that picture right there was taken that day. She'd been in extraordinary pain for a while, and she'd been having a cough and everything else, and lost her voice, was struggling to breathe, other things, you know, at times, and they couldn't figure it out. She was taking these lozenges that she said taste terrible. I forget the name of them, but she said they're the strongest lozenges that she's ever had. It's got, you know, a ridiculous amount of stuff in there to help. But it tastes like turpentine. I mean, it's just totally gross. And so she'd been, you know, using those just to keep herself from coughing because she would cough so much she would vomit. And this has been going on for months. Doctors were like, I don't know what's wrong with you. We'll come to find out. She gets to University of Michigan. They give her a triple diagnosis. Not just one, 3. They said she had walking pneumonia, which of course, look, pneumonia is a serious killer when it comes to people who have cancer, people who have any kind of immunodeficiency, AIDS even, I mean, you name it. You end up getting pneumonia, that could be, you know, life and death for you. She has walking pneumonia, bronchitis, and COVID at the same time. So she's dealing with the triple threat, right? And her immune system is, you know, she takes things for immunotherapy and stuff like that to boost it. But that's because she has to, right? Her body's fighting tooth and nail trying to help her. And I posted this because, you know, it's one of these moments, right? It's one of these moments. And she said this, okay? She said, I tested positive for that thing that's been going around. So, and she's one of those, she hates all the hubbub about this stuff. She's like, look, I've got cancer that could, possibly kill me. And she's like, and I'm not freaking out. So, I tested positive for that thingamajig, that thing. It's been going around. But my bigger issue, don't you love that, by the way, seems to be that my brain is acting up again. I've been admitted, received CTs, blood draws, half a dozen drugs, and I'm now awaiting an MRI. I'm in more pain than I've ever experienced in my life. And I could use any prayers that you'd be willing to offer up on my behalf. God hears you. Holy St. Nicholas, pray to God for me. That was, of course, St. Nicholas Day. Now, here's the thing. She posted this. That was a couple days ago, 17 hours ago. This is why I love her. Here's the thing. Funny story. I was having a very difficult time smiling through the pain. I'd read somewhere once that by simply raising your eyebrows, you can improve your RBF. Hindsight is 20/20. I can see very clearly now how inaccurate that advice was. She's like, oh man, I'm looking hit. I'm looking rough, But she's still smiling. She's still smiling, and it's one of those things, people, when they pray, you ask people to pray and you say, look, please pray for her and please do, right? She needs you. She needs you big time. And it was amazing. I cannot even tell you what it felt like to that day, how scared our family, the kind of emotions that we experienced being, there's nothing really we can do. We're 2 hours away or more from even where she happens to be. We have to wait on tests to find out, what's causing all this. And it's more than that now. They found out other things, including fluid in the brain and the heart, and decisions have to be made. None of those are fun. She could get a shunt put in, right? My brother has one for a different thing. He had a closed head injury. My niece has one, okay? She was born with hydrocephalus. She has one. But it's not fun. You're not like, oh, okay, good. Yeah, okay. I'm just going to go ahead and have a quick surgery to drain fluid and stuff. That's not the way that works. You're not typically happy. I mean, you're happy on the one hand. It's happening, and there's at least something you can do to relieve the pressure. But they need to tests to find out about the fluid itself, right? Because it's not just in the brain. It's around the heart. And so there's a lot of things. She is up against ropes right now. And yet, she is able to laugh, right? And in fact, it was funny, even the people below that, sitting there saying, I'm laughing. Hopefully it doesn't hurt as much today for you to laugh. And my sister said, it feels good to laugh. And of course, I laughed with her on that stuff, right? And I thought about it. I said, a lot of times when we pray, we just think, oh, God, we're asking for a miracle. And it's totally true. I mean, we're all hoping that, right? Wouldn't that be great? It'd be great if all of a sudden she went in for a test and they said, oh my gosh, here's a crazy thing. You had cancer all through your body. You had 50 tumors and now they're gone. And she lives, to be 85, 90 years old. Wouldn't that be great? But there's kind of a grand book of life and death with cancer. And there's not many instances of that. Those things, it's harder to get into the NBA than to have that. That's how rare we're talking. I mean, it's a rare thing to have that, especially at this phase. I mean, you don't see that very often. And so you got to be real and you say, well, in what way would God be answering prayers? And I'll tell you, with all of the howling going up to the sun, S-O-N, from the wolf pack, I can assure you, I can't assure, right? God's will is mysterious, but I would be willing to bet the farm that part of the answer to that prayer is giving her the ability to smile and laugh. She's a GladTrad. She's one of those. Oh, she's one of those. Oh no. She's one of those people who doesn't look like they're bitter all the time. Well, how could she possibly be a Christian? She's able to laugh. And so I'm grateful for all of you. I'm grateful for your prayers. I'm grateful for your support. I just want to say also real quick, we posted, people have been asking, people who are unfamiliar, said, hey, how do I find that enthusiasm series you did? Over on Telegram, we posted the entire thing. And for the patrons, I will go ahead and I'll catch you guys up to date with posts that are on Patreon that will direct you to the Telegram. okay, because that's where we're posting that stuff. We have channels specifically for the patrons, and we'll begin just dumping tons and tons of stuff in there, all sorts of goodies. But right here, the Full Enthusiasm series. Now, each episode, you know, of course, we go for 2 hours, but what we've done here is put a timestamp on this. So you've got the topic for each one of these, the title for each one, what it talks about. And if you click on it, it takes you to the beginning. It skips over all the intro, all the banter, all that stuff. And it goes straight to the beginning of the presentation. So you can go ahead and find that. And also, last thing, just as an encouragement, 'tis the season. Oh no. Let me see if I can get this bugger up here. Do. There we go. Oh, let me scooch it down a little. Okay. So right here. This is the second thing that I wrote after years of basically silence. I hadn't written anything in a long time. And I wrote a piece called The Blinding Light of Darkness, right? Underneath it, it felt ancient, even primal, like a timeless tragedy, as somber and as sorrowful as the wilderness. And that picture here that you see, that picture is actually from Sacred Heart. I took that picture with my cell phone the morning that I wrote this. And I wrote it for Meaning of Catholic back when, before Tim was with 1 Peter 5. And it starts out with a quote from our priest over at Sacred Heart of Jesus in Grand Rapids. It says, "True prayer starts in the darkness, for it is only then and there that we can see the light." And it's told like a story. It has a feel almost of myth and legend. It's remarkable, I could say. it's well written. I don't know. Whoever the author was, pretty good. Pretty good. So, okay, if you're interested in joining the Wolfpack chat, of course, you can do that over here. It's a super fun time. We always have a good time. People share all sorts of things over here, you know, and a lot of pictures, a lot of resources, a lot of links, music, GIFs, and just an overall happy, fun time, right? Yeah, but I love your enthusiasm, you know. And so, yes, it's a happy, fun time. You can go over there. Once we get to 200, we'll have another party. We're pretty darn close. And right now, Bruce is typing. I don't know if Bruce even knows I'm talking right now, but you're on air, Bruce. You are on air, buddy boy. And make sure, once you join, our welcome bot gives you kind of a long introduction, but it has all the links, including to the Wolfpack prayer chain, to the art and poetry group there, St. Catherine's Atrium, the book club of the Canine Brigade, Wolfpack resources, and as I said, yeah, the prayer chat and all that. And so you can find all of that by going over to the Wolfpack chat on Telegram. If you're not there, you're cuckoo crazy. Cuckoo crazy weirdo. Cuckoo crazy weirdo. So, okay, we're not even going to talk anymore about anything else. We're just going to go straight into this. I'm sorry that, you know, normally we have more time to just do the banter thing and go back and forth, and we do more introductory remarks. But we got to move on. We got to rock this out. We got a lot to do today, and this is the second to last episode in the series. Okay, this is 9. I think I'm limiting it at 10, capping it off at 10 for the Father Lasance series. And it gives you the general gist. I've skipped over a couple portions of the book, you know, and so, but I tried to keep a train of thought throughout the entire thing, and we're going to end off talking about vocations and whether or not should you get married, should you not get married, what are things that you can do if you want to discern and stuff like that. So we're going to talk about that. It's going to be a good time. But today we're going to be talking about the GladTrads. So I want you to get your coffee ready. You got to get your coffee ready because the alert system has been activated. It has been activated. The Grand Canonist, Anthony, pounding away at the alarm, letting everybody know the conch has gone out. The shofar blasts are going out. The didgeridoos all over the place are going out. Trumpets, all sorts of blasts and drums, do-do-do-do-do, letting people know that we are about to enter the octagon. We are about to enter, in this case, the octagon of the apologetics of everyday life. And why? Because we're surrounded. We're surrounded by chaos. We're surrounded by nonsense, a bunch of clowning around. And people are falling away left and right. People have found themselves in a quagmire, in a cesspool of sickness, and that sickness is sin, secularism, liberalism, and they're swirling around in this whirlpool. It's destroying them. They're gasping for life. What am I going to do? Well, I'll tell you what you're going to do. You're going to follow Meaning of Catholic. And on Meaning of Catholic, you're going to find a whole bunch of amazing resources, including, of course, yours truly, talking about Father Lasance, talking about enthusiasm, talking about secular age, talking about the practical apologetics for Johnny Q and Sally Sue, Catholic, and making it in a way that we can understand how to move forward. How did we get here? Where are we now? How did this happen? Did you ever imagine? Maybe in your nightmares, but did you ever imagine we'd be here? And to say, but how? What is this place? And not only how can we possibly survive in a day and age where people are falling left and right to various sins and apostasy, not only how we survive, but how we thrive. How do we do it? Father Lasance. Father Lasance to the rescue, baby. Father Lasance to the rescue. Giving practical advice intended for children, expanded by your boy here, for everybody. To say these are lessons you can take with you your entire life. Just like the guides. Just like the guides that even the Pope particularly enjoyed. Gave him a special blessing for. And so we want to continue this effort. Kind of like we want to continue the effort of St. Francis de Sales and his method of apologetics in bringing people back. We want to continue this to not only get out of this, but to triumph. Grateful for all of you. All right, we're going right away. Right away to scene number 2. Scene number 2 coming up. Boom. There we go. Real quick, window capture. Okay, let's go ahead and do this. We got to find ourselves. Where's that window capture? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, and yeah, and for some reason, it's like it's stuck. It's like it's stuck here. Oh no, window capture. I gotta get back here and let's see if we can find out. Yeah, wow. So, yeah, let's see here. Properties. What's going on with this, man? What is going on with this? There we go. Look at that. Okay, that's better. Yeah, it must have been like an old one or something like that. Why was that stuck? It may be an old one. All right, so let's see. There were a bunch of comments ahead of this. What happened? There was a whole bunch of comments ahead of this. Oh, okay, hold on. Let's go to live chat. We're gonna find out if that changes anything. No, it does not. No, it does not. What in the world, man? What in the world? Yeah, okay. Let me see something. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah, we've got it. This has to be it. This has to be it, because yeah, it's the one that's down there. Okay, we got you. We got you. No, that is not the one. No, that is not the one. I was like, man, what is going on with this? What is going on? It's killing me over here. I had 2 of them up. Why did I do that? There we go. There we go. Thank you. I'm like, something is wrong here. What is going on? I have to blame Wolfgang. I hate doing that. He's taking a nap. My little guy's taking a nap, and I'm going to throw him under the bus. Wolfgang! It's all your fault, man. I told him we have to update the Fisher-Price computer he's got. The mouse is this, crazy-looking Lego-like thing. And I said, look, buy a new mouse or something. I know that they've updated that. Go to the Fisher-Price website. You got to have a new one. Or it's little Louie. Maybe little Louie. He's learning about fire trucks and numbers right now. Yeah, he wasn't taking care of this. What, is he expecting me to do it? All right, Phil Gonzalez. Yes, dude, wolf. Look at that, 3 wolves, man. David, same thing. Happy Solemnity of the Immaculate Conception. Let's feast it up for Ma. Yes. Let's see here. Yes, Happy Solemnity, Immaculate Conception. All right, man, everybody's looking at all the wolves. If you go in there and you put up a wolf, it's one of those things. Your day's probably going pretty good. Let's see here. Okay, it kind of feels like election night. Waiting on Michigan, LOL. Election night to me, it was like whatever. It was like whatever for me. I wasn't too. I told people ahead of time I wasn't going to pay much attention to election night. I said because it didn't matter. What mattered was the day after that. But but this is obviously much different. This is a big deal. By the way, did I say earlier for some reason? Did I say Immaculate Heart? What did I say? Anyway, okay. All right, let's see. Rosary is the weapon. Padre Pio. Yes. Good morning, First Lady of the Kaiser. Talking, of course, about Angela Bannister. And normally I would say my mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife, but I have been informed that I am not supposed to heap praises on my wife, especially, due to the fact that she's obviously very physically attractive. I've been informed of that by some, equalitarian over at Covenant Eyes of all places. Of all places over there, saying, well, what if not everybody is as hot as your wife? Well, that's normal. That's normal, man. There's 7 billion people on the planet. I went on in a live chat. I broke down point by point why I think that article was, and yeah, it's garbage. Definitely sensitive. He's faulting on the side of hypersensitivity. I get it. But his arguments were snowflake stuff, man. Like, well, not everybody looks the same and all of that. And what if your wife is looking pretty hit? And I'm like, well, look, that's just part of life. And, that we shouldn't focus on that. I'm like, okay, that's one thing. Isn't that weird though when people say, don't focus on what you look like? That doesn't matter. Those two things don't necessarily follow. Okay? Because the way people look most definitely matters. In fact, Father Lasance is going to talk about it here. He's going to talk about that. The way you present yourself, it definitely matters. There's a golden ratio with that. There's a golden mean. You're not wanting to be, potato sack Sally, but you also don't want to be the kind of person that's decking yourself out all the time, in pearls and diamonds and such, just to flaunt that. And you don't want to be the kind of person that's shallow, that believes that that's all it's about. But the idea is, someone said, the guy said, do you think you're more blessed to have a wife like that? And I'm like, all other things being equal? Yeah. If all other things are equal, and your wife happens to be just absolutely stunningly attractive, and everybody in the universe kind of knows it, then, look, you're hooked up. And people should not shy away from that any more than they would shy away from the fact that they're tall. The girl... girls, guys, look, I'm a little Napoleon dude. I'm like 5'7". I'm on my horse and I'm Napoleon. I hop down and I'm surrounded by generals. They're all looking at me. Hey, man, what are we doing next? And I'm like the little guy in the group. I happen to also be the Kaiser. So I happen to be the guy running that show. At the same time, look, I'm not. I'm like Muggsy. I'm Muggsy Boguesing it up. He was actually shorter. I'm Spud Webbing it up right now. Okay? I'm the same height as Spud Webb was in basketball. And so, you sit there and you say, I didn't ask God, please make me short, Lord. Please make my kids the smallest kids on the court. And by the way, congratulations to my son. His team got smoked last night, just completely hammered. They did. They got crushed badly. But of the points that they did score, and he's not a starter, he scored about a quarter of the points for the whole team. He scored 3 different baskets, 2 2-pointers and 1 3-pointer. And the 1 3-pointer was at the buzzer at the end of the half. It was awesome. It was totally awesome, right? And so yeah, but you have to accept it. You have to accept it and be grateful for that. And if somebody, and look, sometimes there are people who, they may not necessarily take care of themselves and they look super frumpy and dumpy and stuff. That's one thing. But there's also, Elephant Man. If you're Elephant Man, you can't, you're kind of dealt that hand in life and such. And so you got to, even Elephant Man deserves love and stuff. But the idea that these folks these equalitarian weirdos, the idea that they wouldn't see the difference, you're like, oh, so why don't you go over there? Why isn't, Elephant Woman on your list of people that you're like, oh yeah, I think I'll go and check her out and maybe date. Maybe by happenstance, it just happens to turn out that maybe they meet and talk, find out, Elephant Woman is the match for him. But unlikely that that's going to be who he's looking at. And is that because he's a scumbag? No. It's because he has 2 fully functioning set of eyeballs and he's a normal guy. And that it's perfectly fine for people to recognize physical beauty. That they can see that and say, that's a beautiful painting. They can see, architecture. They can see a natural landscape and recognize beauty. And that they don't get to a human and all of a sudden go, me no see nothing. Weirdos. So yes, I shall continue saying that my wife is in fact my mega hot half Korean beauty queen wife. And more than that, I have to put an asterisk and say, even if she ended up being in some, crazy accident and some fire, I'd still say it. I'll say it when she's old and wrinkly I'll say it when she's old and wrinkly. I'll be like, baby, you're still the hottest woman in the entire elder care home. That's what I'll be doing. And all the other men will be like, how dare you? How dare you talk about how hot your wife is? And I'm like, I've been saying it for a long time, boys. And all the women will be like, I wish my husband was like that. You know, Star and Judith and Edith and such. They're all going to be like, I wish my husband was talking that way. Yeah. Give them an example, boys. Give them an example. Let's see. All right. Yeah, somebody said, Jeremiah, it is called Fisherman's Lozenges. Apparently, it's Fisherman's Friend Original Extra Strong Lozenges. I love you, baby. yeah. So that's true. Yeah. So the lozenges my sister was taking. That's exactly true. Let's see. We can purify ourselves of sin and temporal effects of sin voluntarily. Here. Yes. Andrew says, oh, Andrew, good to see you, bro. God is answering our prayers. Look what he is doing and how he draws a community together in spite of suffering. You better believe it, son. You better believe it, son. Let's see. Okay. Yeah, people are like, you got comments from the last show, bro. Yeah, let's see, man. Let's see. Yeah, today is the day when we'll know whether Catholic mystic Father Michael Rodriguez, is it Rodriguez or Rodriguez? I have no idea, is right about St. Gabriel's sign in the sky, witnessed by all mankind, or whether he's a fraud. Oh, boy. No. Okay, yeah. I didn't even know anything about this. I had no clue. And we're going to find out what happens with it, Father Michael, I guess. You know, I probably guess what'll happen. A whole bunch of nonsense. David, I can probably guess what'll happen. ... A whole bunch of nonsense. Oh, it's good to see all of you, of course. Yes. Aaron, of course, it's more blessed to have a beautiful wife. How's that not obvious? Dude, thank you, man. Thank you, bro. It's true. And that's the same thing for the ladies. I mean, and the dudes, don't we know it? Don't we know it? Isn't that why we say, if you happen to be hooked up fat with a mega hot wife, that you sit there and you're like, dude, I'm like way out of my league, homie. I don't even know how I got here. I don't know what I did to fool her, but I hope I keep doing it good. I know. I'm like, oh boy. You know, you say, I see other guys, you know, tall dudes with a bunch of hair, sleek and, you know, crazy, amazing chin, forehead that looks less like Luke Perry and more like Superman kind of thing. Like, you know, it's just true. It's just true. And you say guys with six packs, you know, under their shirt, and it's not a 6-pack of beer. We know that. And so, you know, we know that we're grateful also that our wives believe that we are attractive, even though we kind of know. We're like, oh, yeah, we're grateful for that. And I know that they're grateful to hear that. And even the ones who might not necessarily be the most hooked up, you know that they still, what they see, right? What they see. And that's important to say, look, it's okay. It's all right. And beauty is not confined to that. That's a passing thing. But so is the beauty of a flower. The beauty of a flower is a passing thing, right? Seasons come, seasons go. But who would be stupid enough to say, oh, is that flower beautiful? I don't know. Because it's passing and fading away. Yeah, I can't recognize something when I see it. Yeah, I don't do that. Let's see. Don't blame Wolf. He was on top of certain stuff before some of us. Yeah. Don't blame my son for not getting stuff done. I hope to identify as Potato Sack Sally one day. Phil, I hope you never identify as Potato Sack Sally. I hope you don't, man. Oh, man. Yeah, John says, checking in every few months. This guy has a Protestant soul with his jittery restlessness. I'll check in again. Bye. Dude, you're a goon, bro. You're a weirdo, man. And look, that's exactly, it's sad that you left because you're actually the exact kind of person that we're talking about when talking about MadTrads and SadTrads and BadTrads. Oh my. We're actually talking about people like you. That's the second time in what? Was it 3 days? I think it's the second comment in 3 days that you posted as a hater. You just and making sure that the world knows. Yeah, this guy, he has a Protestant soul with his jittery restlessness. Dude, Are you serious? Like, I'm on a show, man. I'm on a show. This is a visual medium, right? And it's meant to be educational and entertaining. In fact, people should go, and it's funny, there are people who, they see me on here and the music is all psyched. And by the way, right now, I'm just chilling out, just talking with people in the comments. It's different when the music's going, isn't it? The music's going, you get excited. It's meant to be that way. It's meant to get you pumped up for the next thing. Why do you think? I bet this cat watches people like Tucker Carlson. And it begins in the beginning. Do. It's got the electric car. Why do you think they do that? You don't understand media. And if you don't like the show, go find something that's boring. I'm dead serious, man. Isn't the world filled with boring stuff for boring people like you? Isn't there enough out there? Do you need to let everybody know? And here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. We're only taking this as a note. Because in the end, we're going to laugh. We're going to have a good time. And because GladTrad Apologetics is practical for everyday life, for everyday people, you're going to see more and more and more and more and more of us. You're going to see a lot of us. Because we're out there trying to make a difference, and we're not walking into groups with this face. Yeah, you know what? This guy's happy. He's smiling a lot. Do you hear how he's giggling and having fun? Okay, Pat. That's not inspiring anybody. That's literally inspiring nobody. There's a quote we're going to talk about. I'll dedicate it to you. A quote from Father Lasance talking about, what do people get when they go into a place that's filled with radiance and sunshine, joy, cheerfulness, faith, prayer, and they bring in their storm clouds? What do they get out of that? What do you get out of that? You like that? You like spreading that sickness? Father Lasance says it's demonic. Father Lasance says that kind of thing's demonic. You're going around and you're like, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to let people know, bye, I'm out. Have you ever heard of turn the channel? You want to announce to the world, you go outside and announce to the world, hey, everybody, I don't like this channel I'm watching. I saw a show on a channel that I like some shows, but I didn't like this one show, and so I want to let everybody know. Bro, who does that? Who does that? It gets me. It's hilarious. It just is mind-boggling. Yeah, people say check in as often as you wish, John. Yeah. Oh, he's gone, guys. He's gone. He only comes in to cast a frown on the situation, because that's what his brand of Catholicism does. Yeah. David says, John, a messenger who doesn't fit what you expected. Where have we heard this before? Oh, whoa. Oh, man. Oh, buddy. Yeah. And there's some good advice in here. There's some good advice with stuff. Let's see. I'm going to lunch today with a friend, but I'm not allowed in restaurants because I'm not vaxxed. So weird to have to show papers. We'll just PU and eat in the car. Right? What a strange times. Yeah. The last one. Sometimes my identification as a mad, sad, or bad trad is influenced by mad scientists, sad scientists, and bad scientists. Yeah, it's one of those things like, look, people can be mad and sad, and I don't know about bad. Bad, don't put bad trad in there. A bad trad, that's bad. It's okay to be sad. It's okay to be mad, depending on the situation. It's okay to be glad, depending on the situation. But in reality, glad covers more area in Catholicism than sad and mad. And that's uber trad. It is. It's uber trad, and we're going to find out right now. Yeah, so Mikey says, I'm a mad lad, rad, glad trad. Oh, man. So, all right, we're gonna get right to it. Let's get this thing off the screen here. I'm grateful for all of you, by the way. All right. There's a certain sort of harsh, repellent virtue, and it may be that some souls are called to it. So right out of the gate, he's talking about politeness. We're talking Father Lasance. We're talking about him and his book on, this is from a manual for men. Okay, so this particular episode is dedicated to that. So, all right. But he says there's some kind of repellent virtue. And it may be that some people are called. We saw an example of that just a moment ago. Isn't that repellent? And I hate using individuals as an example, but when you pull something up in a live chat that's on the video, it's almost inevitable it's going to happen. So that people like that who do that, right? Maybe they're called, in fact, to a certain kind of harsh and repellent virtue. It's like, ugh. Like, oh, yeah, well, that guy, oh, gross. Okay? There's also a pleasant sort of virtue to whose influence it must be credited. Let me make sure I got my stuff all lined up here, too. Let me make sure I got all my stuff. Okay, my wife's, here we go. So right here, okay, a pleasant sort of virtue whose influence it must be credited if the kingdom of good is extended below. So if you're looking to extend the kingdom and you're not just like, hey, look, man, it's for the tiny tribe of the small group of souls that I'm so lucky to be part of. If that is not your belief system, you're not some raging enthusiast, weirdo, pessimistic frown face, and you're somebody who wants to expand the kingdom here and say, look, we have to go out and try to make disciples. We need to go out and testify against the world, but to do so in a way like the Lord did. And we need to be able to do that and have the kind of demeanor, for example, where, kids looked up to him and thought he was pleasant enough to go and sit on his lap. That ain't going to happen if you're the sad Santa Claus, or you're the madman sitting there looking all creepy and angry and constantly complaining all the time. Not many people want to go up and talk to old creepy Uncle Joe at the Thanksgiving dinner table. They're like, do we have to talk to him? Give him a hug right now. Do we have to? Yes, give him a hug right now. And smile when you do it. We're trying to be a good influence on him, right? Politeness increases an individual's amiability and elevates his morally good qualities, making these individuals worthy of imitation. That's hard to do, isn't it? And that's why it's a saintly advice. I mean, this isn't easy to do. He doesn't go, write a bunch of mad tweets. Go and get click-clactivated, mega woke, right? Where you go and you're online and all you do is you're sitting there, yeah, this really riles me up. But the same folks that say that they don't get their passions riled up, but boy, they sure look that way online. Spreading grumpy town left and right. Is that worthy of imitation? Who in their right mind wants to imitate that person? Who in their right mind wants to convert to a religion that results in that? It brings disgrace and disrepute on the church. It does. Politeness and virtue are most intimately connected. And look at this. And this is the thing about the grumpy town. Is grumpy town thinks that they're mad virtuous, right? But it's always having to be explained all the time. They're always on the defensive. Yes, I am happy. I'm really happy. You don't even understand the kind of joy that I experience. Do you believe them ever? The worldling, in order to please the world, does many things that are not easy, nor to his taste. He molds himself into certain forms, abandons views and inclinations that are near and dear to him, puts restraints upon himself, bears insults, overlooks slights, keeps back what he would like to say, and he speaks when he would rather remain silent. I like that last one. Sometimes he'd rather just remain silent, but he speaks. He's in a situation where the worldling's like, oh man, I got to do this because he wants to please everybody, no matter what the cost. He must maintain his position. He must rise. Hence, a miserable pittance or reward, he becomes the inglorious victim of vanity, selfishness, and human respect. But it's not so with the virtuous man. The virtuous man makes sacrifices, even a sacrifice of himself. But he does so for the love of God. Without sacrificing conscience, he endeavors in all other things to become all to all. And that's one of those things where you go, man, that's actually a complicated thing, isn't it? To become all to all. Actually, I brought this up when talking. Somebody asked me about apologetics, and they were confused a little bit about what my meaning in does apologetics diminish Catholicism? And it was an episode I did last Monday a couple days ago over on Reason and Theology and was asking questions. And I said that the apologist would need to learn the art of being all to all. That not everybody's going to be persuaded. In fact, very few people are going to be persuaded by formal argumentation. If you rack up the numbers, by and large, the vast majority of people, they're not like, well, I became a Catholic because, I heard a good argument or a good syllogism. That's not how it works most of the time. And I said they need to become all to all. But even in our own lives, that we say, how do we become all to all? We restrict ourselves for the sake of other people. We accommodate ourselves to their tastes. Being indulgent where he can be. I mean, where did homeboy go? He needs to read this. He needs to read this. And aren't we tolerant, by the way, of folks who are boring? Like nobody's going in and saying, well, I check in on this, hoping that you guys won't be so boring in the future. We make indulgences for that. We say there's room for that. People have different tastes. People have different emphasis that they prefer in their life. He praises what is praiseworthy and knows how to soften unnecessary rebuke by sympathy and friendly interest. Cheerful without excess. He is obliging, affable, polite, without cringing. Modest with superiors, benign with his equals, and condescending to inferiors. And by that, it means to go down. It doesn't mean to talk down in a condescending way. God condescends when he uses human language to reveal himself in our scripture and tradition, for example. Okay? Same thing with this. In fact, I've said before that with what I do on the show, one of my missions in life, I said, I learned this early on. I really appreciated how there were certain theologians and apologists who were able to understand really complex issues, and maybe they taught philosophy or theology or apologetics in seminary and that kind of thing, but that they were able to make it something that was actionable for everyday folks, and of many different age groups too. That there was a popular appeal to that. Fulton Sheen. That's one of the reasons why so many people, I mean, look at the depth of the man. And yet at the same time, he was able to popularize these ideas. He was able to bring them down, to condescend to people, to say, I want to empower you by making it applicable, by making it relatable and understandable. And that way you can embrace it for yourself and become a better person. And in doing so, to affect those things around you, to shed light on everything you touch, most specifically human hearts and human minds. Politeness and urbanity, culture and courtesy have value only as far as they proceed from an aim at charity. If their source is true self-denial, if they rest upon the esteem of the neighbor, as faith teaches us, they're laudable, meritorious, and they're pleasing to God. I love this advice here. You'll avoid many faults against charity if you remove what is contrary to good manners. So if you want to say, well, how do I do good? How do I become a more charitable person? What do I do? Remove what's contrary to good manners. Yes, good manners will even be to your own gain, because through their influence, you will learn to treat yourself with a kind of veneration. Consider it not below your dignity to pay attention to courtesy, even in minor things. The clothing you wear, dress, carriage, right? The way you're carrying yourself, looks, gestures, gait, speech. Nothing is to be overlooked. So this is a holistic approach. This is saying it's taking account of the whole creature. Externals, internals, physical, spiritual, right? Sacred, the way that you behave yourself when in a sacred space, but also how you perform your tasks in the secular realm as a worker. And saying this is the whole enchilada kind of deal, that's why it's for everyday life. This is something saying, look, we can learn these lessons, which are theological, they're practical, pertaining to virtue, even to evangelism, How do we reach out to other people? How do we draw other people to the Lord? And what does he include in this? Manners. The way you dress, looks, gestures, gait, speech. That nothing's overlooked. A man is known by his look. And a wise man, when you meet him, is known by his countenance. People say, well, that's not right. Say, well, look, he's quoting the Bible here. Okay, for, quote, the attire of the body and the laughter of the teeth and the gait of the man show what he is. Think about it for a second. Read it again. Read it again. Come on. Come on. Read it again. The attire of the body, the laughter of the teeth, and the gait of a man show what he is. The heart of fools is in their mouth, and the mouth of the wise man's in his heart. A wise man will hold his peace till he sees opportunity, but a babbler and a fool will regard no time. It's all-encompassing. Whole enchilada. He that answers before he hears shows himself to be a fool, worthy of confusion. We had this recently, man. Some cat talking about, well, I don't like Ronald Knox on this or that. I had it in a comment section over on Reason and Theology, and I had it on the Wolfpack chat. But I don't like Ronald Knox. I think he's wrong. And you're like, oh, you read Enthusiasm? No. You didn't? Okay. So what is he wrong on? Well, some people didn't like him. Woo! Fools. He that uses many words shall hurt his own soul. This is one of those things, look, that right there, that stung. That was one of those things to me, I'm like, whoo, boy. One who uses many words shall hurt his own soul. Things to learn. A fool will peep through the window into a house, but he that is well taught will stand without. I think that's a lesson. I think a lot of people, when they would read something like that, the very first impression would be, well, you know what he's talking about? He's talking about all peeping Toms. I think that, and I made the claim here, haven't I, that there, in a traditional understanding of society, the church, politics, there are levels, right? There are places that have do not enter signs. And this leveling that's taken place through secularization and democracy has made it so that we're really irritated by that. We go into areas that say do not enter, and we're like, oh, that's like an invitation, I think. And we do it all the time. We're constantly peering in, trying to see what's going on with the hierarchy. What is he saying? And our kind of interest in that is not much different than the folks, and you've probably seen them, that they don't like the low mass, for example, because they can't hear what the priest is saying. Well, I want to know what he's saying. How do you know he's not saying something bad? I think that same thing. You're peering into a place you don't even need to peer into. It's none your business, son. If you sit amongst many, reach not thy hand out first of all, and be not the first to ask for a drink. I mean, isn't that practical wisdom? Imagine what you are if you're the person who shows up somewhere and you're the first one up at the line. You're the first one to reach in for everything all the time. You're the first one to want that. You're the first one to ask for a drink. You get to the place, and you're like, hey, man, you got drinks? Unless it's water. Unless it's water, you're like, oh, yeah, I got, dry mouth. You have a glass of water? I just need a glass of water real quick. Leave off first, for manners' sake, and exceed not, lest thou offend. Practical advice. Practical advice when you're invited to a wedding, sit not down in the highest place. Again, practical advice. What does it say of you if you show up? I mean, have you ever had that? Is your family the kind that has like a seat at the table for the dad at the head of the table? And somebody sits in it and they're just plopped down like it's no thing, and people are kind of looking at them like, whoa. I grew up in something like that. I have that now. I do. I have the man chair. There's the Kaiser's throne at the head of the table there. If it be possible, as much as you can, have peace with all men. I think that's something that modern trads gloss over. MadTrads definitely do. SadTrads probably do. BadTrads, yeah, it's certainly that they do. That they're not at peace with men to the extent that it's even possible. And in fact, it's always grudgingly so. It's always grudgingly so. Knee-jerk reactionism 101. These folks are experts. If it was an Olympic sport, they'd be gold medalists. But how easily may courteous manners, ennobled by a modest reserve, dispel the popular prejudice against virtue and awaken in the rudest and most vicious mind a strong desire to imitate him who is nonetheless a Christian because he's a polished gentleman. And this is where there's folks, they follow the likes of individuals, like Jordan Peterson, and that's okay to an extent, but you say it's deeper than that. It's deeper than following guerrilla mindset. It's deeper than that. You can have a manly appearance, and you can do the stuff that has a kind of strength to it. You can be, I'm part of a boxing group of traditional Catholics. Good, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. Spar away. Be a man. Do manly things. I go hiking and I go out camping and stuff. That's great. I go fishing. Great, wonderful. I go hunting. Okay, wonderful. You can do all those things you want. But at the end of the day, if you are the kind of person that everywhere you go, you're casting, storm clouds and shadows everywhere, you aren't even a polished gentleman. You're not a gentleman of the heart. You're LARPing. You're like the clown meme where the guy's putting on the makeup bit by bit by bit, and it gets crazier and crazier and crazier. That's you. That would be no different. How would that be different? And in many cases, even worse than the person who is beautiful on the exterior and dresses beautifully and is, a complete scumbag sexual pervert. Most of the time, those people are not claiming to be an example of Catholicism. But the men who claim to be doing the things for the exterior and to do those things that they believe are manly, and they forget the concept of kindness and politeness, the matters of the heart, of cheerfulness and gladness, of being patient with others, to hold their tongue, to shine light and spread light, especially in the darkest of places. If they don't do that, again, LARP, clown world. If we're living epistles, they're kind of this like animated clown mass walking around. It's a joke. And by the way, you don't need to they demand a certain kind of respect of themselves. They say, I'm a true man. I'm a true man. I'm a manly man. And they're the kind of guys rubbing the shoulders of other guys, assuring each other, yeah, we're really manly. It's not respectable. It's not making a huge difference in the world. It isn't. Because someone could say, you know what? Who wants to be that? Who wants that? It'll be short-lived, by the way, because it's shallow. Even to the extent that it's embraced. And again, don't get me wrong. I'm not treating it as an either or. I'm treating it as a both and. Do the manly things. Do all those things I said. But have a cheerfulness of heart. Because you have good reason to. In fact, you don't just have good reason, you have overwhelmingly good reasons, plural. There's an apostolate of cheerfulness as well of prayer and of preaching. By word and example, like a sweet fragrant flower by the roadside, whose bright loveliness is a joy to everyone who passes by. Our cheerfulness is a blessing to all with whom we come in contact. A young man, merely by being cheerful, exerts a quiet yet potent influence for good. Let us bear this in mind, that we can be helpful to souls, that we can encourage them and strengthen them in good by our cheerfulness and amiability. Because we, as the art of being happy says, we must do our duty with joy, with eagerness, and love. Let us learn to show always a smiling face, although our work is distasteful to us or overwhelms us. And after having worked hard, let us take care not to recall in the conversation the pains we've taken or the fatigue that we have. We don't wear that on our sleeve. You know, it reminds me, you know, and I've had people tell me this all the time, you know, going through hard stuff, right? Going through hard stuff in life, losing my best friend, daughter dies of brain cancer, sister ends up getting cancer, stage 4, please pray for her, she's in the hospital, if you're just tuning in. I talk about it at the beginning of the show. We have my mother-in-law, right? Severe car accident, brain damage. We have my brother-in-law died in that car accident. All of these things. We're talking, that's within the last, 8 years of our lives. All of that stuff. And yet, what do? You know what the main criticism is? The main criticism that I receive is that we're always laughing. We're always smiling. We're always energetic. The energy is just too much. Jittery. Energy. Excitement. How dare you? How dare you be so happy? How dare you? Don't you understand? Don't you understand you have a lot of reasons to be angry right now? Don't you see the wickedness of the world? Don't you see and feel the pain of the loss? Yes. Yeah. It's why I do what I do. It's why we have to laugh. It's why we cry. That's why we're willing to cry. We get criticized for that. Oh, Jeremiah cries on his show. I've seen him cry before. Of course I cry. I mean, people praying, talking about Valley of Tears. And yet they're like, real men don't cry. Baloney, man. Jesus wept. What a weird group of people. What Herculean expectations that nobody lives up to. And the ones who do, nobody looks at that person and says, wow, that person's real stable. That's somebody who's got something deep within them that has a presentation of stability, but inside is messed up. You can cry. St. Paul cried. Nonsense, man. Be of good cheer. Be of good cheer. That's what the Lord says. Seriously, be of good cheer. Think about it. Think about it. Let's see. Let me go back up. I'm going in the comments real quick, just making sure that I've got. I'm kind of up to date with all this here. All right. Even our Lord says, be of good cheer. A cheerful temper, serenity mingled with tender seriousness, a most engaging presence, a winning personality. And he's saying Jesus possessed this. And how do we know that? People say, oh, what? Jesus had a winning personality? Why do you say that? Oh, let me count the ways. No. Don't let me. I don't want to take credit where it's not due. Let Father Lasance count the ways. Children came to him, our Lord, willingly, and loved to linger near him. And how can anyone imagine him embracing and caressing little children without a smile of loving kindness? Men followed him in crowds, fascinated by his charm of manner and of speech. And into a woman's heart came the thought, what happiness to be the mother of such a son. Do you think there's a lot of people out there who look at the MadTrads and the BadTrads and the SadTrads and say, man, I can imagine little kids just gravitating to this individual to sit on their lap? Can you imagine? Can you imagine people saying, I'm just charmed by his manner of speech. There's something about him that I'm really drawn to. It's really life-changing. And doing that in a way that's not cynical. Yeah, he boasts a lot of roasting memes. He's always ripping on people left and right, dude. It's awesome. Yeah, if your life is more than that, can you imagine any woman looking at, Captain Grumpy Pants? Looking at Captain Grumpy Face, Frown Face Magoo? Looking over at him and going, man, I bet that mom is so happy to be that guy's dad. What a blessing. Oh, the happiness of that mother. I mean, just look, you can see it on his face. It's like the Muppet Musicians of Bremen, right? I don't know if you've ever seen that movie. Muppet Musicians of Bremen. They're outside this cabin out in the swamp. The animals, you got a donkey and a chicken. You got a cat and a dog kind of thing. And they're all, they're musicians. They got different instruments and stuff. The dog's playing the trombone kind of thing. And the donkey's playing a tuba. And so they're out there and they're playing their instruments and such. And their owners end up being these bad guys. They're colluding thieves, right? So they're colluding with each other. They're robbers. And they met in this swamp area in this gross-looking cabin. But the animals are outside at night, and they don't know. It's a foggy night. They don't know what's inside. They only see shadows on the inside. And on the inside, you got it's a Muppet thing, right? Kermit's even in it. It's kind of a rare thing. People don't really know that he did that. So, But the thing is like, it shows this song about a mother, a father, a daughter, a son, a family together as one. And it shows these old men, terrible, rotten faces. I mean, these characters are ugly. And it shows them as a mom and a dad and a daughter and a son. And it's supposed to be this family feel to this like vintage portrait, and they're cutting open the bag, but it's really, the animals think that it's turkey dinner and they're cutting it because they're just seeing the shadow and all that. But can you imagine, anybody looking at that, kids with those faces looking like those wrinkled raisin people with angry faces and going, boy, man, mother and father must be real proud of that very cantankerous soul. That super grumpy, ugly face guy over there that's always complaining about everybody, saying that he's right. I bet his parents are proud. No, you can bet the farm. You can bet the farm that their parents are not proud of them. And they probably have some reason. The kids probably say, wow, my parents aren't that way because my parents have all sorts of problems. Yeah. Among the saints, he talks about St. Francis de Sales. Characteristics of cheerful serenity, meekness, humility, patience, charity, kindness, sweetness of temper, suavity of deportment. Let's see here. Talks about reading from the mystical flora. About how in this he holds a place peculiarly his own. That's kind of a funky word. Say that 10 times as fast as you can. His images do not recall scenes of Cappadocian gloom, right? Or the harshness of the desert, but clear blue waters instead. Right? Without, and I love this, without distorting the rugged outlines of the overhanging hills, which they reflect bright with sunshine, gay with flowers, crowned with teeming vines. So does his gentle spirit present to our minds the loftiest doctrines and all the grandeur of truth, and yet clothed in images of beauty that charm the fancy while they flash new light upon the understanding. Ormsby, in his Life on the Saints, says, there appears in the mind of St. Francis de Sales that union of sweetness and strength, of manly power and feminine delicacy, of profound knowledge and practical dexterity. Which constitutes a character formed at once to win and subdue minds of almost every type and age. All things to all people. All things to all people. And what did he do? We talk about him here all the time, don't we? Right? We talk about him all the time. And you say, you know, the kind of guy that can go in and say, I'm going to go into Geneva. There's a bunch of schismatics there, a bunch of heretics there. I'm going into the lion's den, into Geneva. Shortly after Calvin, the reign of John Calvin. And he's going to go in and he is going to preach the gospel to these people, to reintroduce it to them, to remind them of this, to bring them back to their first love, to their home, Holy Mother Church. And what does he do it? How does he commit it in the beginning? To love. To love. Yeah. As followers of Christ and in imitation of the saints, let us cultivate the habit of cheerfulness. Let's pray for the spirit of gladness. Yeah. How often are these people praying for the spirit of gladness? Are the RadTrads and the BadTrads and the MadTrads, are they praying for a spirit of gladness? Are they forming a habit of cheerfulness? Are they rooting it in charity? Or is there always an asterisk by everything? All the time. Cheerfulness? That doesn't mean I have to be cheerful. Gladness? That doesn't mean I can't be raging mad all the time. I'm really glad, can't you see? And charity? It's charity that I'm constantly roasting everybody 24/7. That I'm constantly bashing people who disagree with me. And a peace of a good conscience. In gratitude to God for the blessings. In Christian hope and confidence. In perfect submission to the divine will. Let us do this not only for our own good, but also for the happiness and betterment of others. Diane in the comments says, one of my favorite priests always used to say, the altar rail is there to let you know where you are not to go. Yeah, talking about there are certain places, right? Certain places where you don't go. Sometimes those places are super holy. Sometimes those borders and boundaries are meant to be a kind of warning. Do not enter because it ain't your business. Let's see. Sorry about that. A cheerful person creates a wholesome moral atmosphere around them. Isn't that a thing? When people talk about, well, we need to restore all things to Christ, and you go, what's the means by which to get there? I agree with you. I agree with so many of the MadTrads and BadTrads and SadTrads and such, right? The umbrella term with RadTrads, to say, look, I agree with so many of you on the ruling assumptions, right? The most basic things, we share Catholic assumptions. Gotcha. What's the end goal? Well, on the bright side of life, whenever they're, not believing that they need to board up the windows and light wax candles and such, beeswax candles, that when they're not doing that, they think, well, we need to restore all things in Christ, that we have a optimistic mandate to move forward, that we have an empowered calling. We've been empowered with a calling to say we need to go out in the world and we need to Christianize all things. Okay, I got it. Wonderful. What's the means? What's the means to get there? Because everywhere you're going, you're creating a terrible environment. You're like a deconstructionist. You're this crazy cognitive dissonance that says on the one hand, you want to reconstruct something. You want to restore something in an effort of reconstruction. And yet at the same time, you're walking around as a deconstructionist. The moral atmosphere around you is not invigorating. It's exhausting. It's actually nauseating. Everybody around you doesn't really care for you. You're like the person who everybody knows, farts in a room and doesn't like to say anything because it's natural. That's what it's like. You're the person who comes up, man, and everybody knows you got stanky breath. And for Christmas, everybody wants to buy you some mints, some of that Banaka spray. And they're like, oh, the guy, his breath is really bad. Every time he's around, it's like, it gets you in the face and you're like, and you kind of puke a little bit in the back of your throat. That's the kind of moral atmosphere you're carrying with you. And you really ought to do better. And a natural disposition should not be offered as an excuse for being morose and rude. You can't go, well, I'm born this way, Well, it's just the way I am. You got to work on that then. Because we find ourselves refreshed by the presence of cheerful people. Why not make earnest efforts to be helpful to others by your own cheerfulness and amiability? Why not? I mean, just think about that. Isn't that one of those, it's almost like with the South Park episode, right? I don't know where I come up with. But it's that, where you got the Bloods and the Crips, and little Jimmy or whatever. They're not understanding that Crips is a gang and it's not meaning like cripple and stuff. And he doesn't understand the feud between them. And so he stands in the middle and he's like, all right, we need to get together. I mean, come on. And everybody's like, yeah, wait a second. What did you say? I mean, come on. Kind of that thing. And you're like, okay, yeah, I mean, look, come on. Why not try that? For him, it was, why don't we have some punch together or whatever? Have a pizza party with some punch. I mean, come on. That's what it's like with this ring. Why not make earnest efforts? Strew the road with flowers for others, and in turn, your own pathway will be scattered with roses. Montaigne says, the most manifest sign of wisdom is contented cheerfulness. And it is undoubtedly true that a cheerful man has a creative power which a pessimist never possesses. That's why they're deconstructionist. That's why their social theories always end up being, they always end up being garbage. Poop, scoops, McDoops. That's why. Because they lack that creative power. We don't. A merry heart goes all the day. A sad tires in a mile. Lou Wallace tells us, a man's task is always light in his heart if his heart is light. So a man's task is always light if his lard is light. His lard. Get the sentence out! Reading from a screen, I'm like, I need bifocals now. Come on! A man's task is always light if his heart is light. And there's wisdom in the Spanish proverb, who sings in grief procures relief. So what do you do in moments of grief? How ought we behave? How ought we to behave when we see the world around us spiraling out of control? When we see terrible scientists lying through their teeth, or we see politicians doing terrible and heinous things, or we see leaders in the church doing terrible and heinous things? How ought we to respond? Should we simply say, oh, you know what? I'm just so happy that they're doing that. No. You would be happy and joyful in spite of the fact that they're doing that. You can be heartbroken too. You can literally walk and chew gum at the same time. Only an enthusiast would deny this and say, no, you should be sad about the fact that there's scumbags in the church. There's scumbags in the pews. There's scumbags in Rome, in the Vatican. There are scumbags in the sacristy. There are scumbags in the schools. Scumbags all around. And you go, bro, I know. Isn't it wicked bad? Yes. What are we going to do about it? Be mad. No. We'll be mad in proportion. And not in proportion to the situation, because the situation's much greater than I can possibly, maybe even in my lifetime, be mad for. It will never suffice. But in proportion to my own life and what my calling and my mission is in my life, what am I to do? How can I better the world around me? Am I going to make the world better by kicking everybody's flower beds and them say, dude, bro, what are you doing that for? And I'm like, because I'm mad. Why? Because people in schools are scumbags. I get it, dude. I get it, bro. Focus that energy, man. You just completely wrecked my flower bed. I've been working really hard on that, and I'm not even at that school. What does that have to do with me? The presence of a good and cheerful man acts like an invigorating tonic upon all around. Have you ever been just made happy by being around somebody who is actually just joyful? Don't you see? And don't you see? I can hear it now. People saying, well, what does this have to do with apologetics? Everything. Everything. For the everyday person, everything. What is the goal of that? To win an argument? Or to solidify the faith of the believer and to advance the cause of Christ in the world and to lead people through an effort to convert them, to draw them in to the faith. This is a good recipe, by the way. This is a recipe that anybody can apply. You don't need a doctorate for this. You don't need a master's degree for this. You need a humble and contrite heart. You need a willingness to say, God, I need to help me to find joy and to see silver linings, and not just to see silver linings of clouds that pass by and think, wow, the silver is pretty. That's a shallow way to look. But to see beyond that cloud, to realize that the reason there's a silver lining is because the sun is still shining. And the way that that's going to impact, the way that you will. You know, the guy from the show Chuck, right? Protestant guy, I believe. You know, and he's also from Shazam. I think was it Shazam? Is that what that was, Shazam? So, but the thing is, like, you know, when he was on the show Chuck, people would ask him questions. He was interviewed by different Christian media outlets and stuff, and they asked him what it was like to live that way, you know, and to be in Hollywood and stuff and have his beliefs the way he did. And he said people were asking him all the time because he was always a joyful guy. You could tell by his smile. There was an authenticity in his smile. And he said that people all the time would ask, you know, like, dude, you're like always happy. Like, does bad stuff just not happen to you? Like, are you lucky? Like, did you just happen to be a lucky guy? And he's like, well, I'm fortunate in many ways and I'm blessed in many ways. I'm the lead on a popular show. However, bad stuff happens in my life. I've lost these people. I've lost these friends, but I have Jesus inside. I have a Lord and Savior. I actually have a relationship with him. He calls me friend. And it comes out, and he's led people to the Lord this way. Why? Because it's appealing. In a world that's otherwise mad and sad and super bad, it's appealing. People wish for that. And they say it's hard because they're like, well, how do we do that? And how can we please God when we're constantly failing? Because, you know, discouragement, what's at the root, by the way? What would be at the root of the MadTrads and the SadTrads and the BadTrads? Discouragement. Discouragement. The idea that there's no way we can possibly, you know, bring back what I'm hoping, the golden era. There's no way. I know that Pope St. Pius X told us that we should go and do that, but I've committed to this idea that it's just going to be negative, and the only way out is a miracle. It's the only way, because it's just a failure. Discouragement. And they look and they can give you a million examples, but failure has nothing to do with pleasing God. A soul who fails and makes an act of contrition 20 times in a day. I love this. Let me make sure I get the next one up here. The next one up. Yeah. Has probably given God more glory and done more for him than one who has gone quietly on all day without failure. This right here, what do you think? God created some people, it may be said, I'm glad for the parenthetical, to serve him by failure. If we look at history, we have to believe something along those lines, or at least grant it. For they give him glory by their acts of contrition and humiliation. While, if they had succeeded, their pride would have made them displeasing to God. I know people. In fact, I had a couple of conversations recently with somebody, you know, a couple different people who were saying that they were really let down and they didn't understand why they could go to confession and do that and then find themselves maybe even the exact same day maybe the exact same day, doing the exact same sin that they went to confession for. They need to read this. They need to hear this. It's okay. What do you do? Do you stand back up? I mentioned, I said, look at the way that the sacraments are laid out. The vast majority of them are things extremely common to every person, so common that it involves some of them, every person. When you're born, okay, when you're born, you're supposed to be baptized, right? The babies must. When you die, you have your final rites, your last rites, extreme unction. As you get older, you reach that age where you're becoming more accountable to what you're doing, more cognizant and aware, empowered to move forward as a young adult. You get married, keep that cycle going, and you die. Tucked in there, of course, would be various orders, ordinations, stuff like that, consecration. But at the end of the day, confession. Because we all need it. Because we all need it. With the exception, of course, we have a couple exceptions in history. In fact, we're celebrating one of those today. Our Lady. And don't you love her? Honor her today, by the way. Show her you love her. Show her you love Mom. We can be always bright and cheerful if we keep our eyes directed toward the eternal shores. To the blessed land of the saints, where the sky is ever cloudless, where the sun of happiness never sets, where a perfect torrent of delight inundates the soul, where, as the beloved disciple tells us, God shall wipe away all tears, and death shall be no more. Nor mourning, nor crying, nor sorrow shall be any more, for the former things are passed away. There's this kind of idea, this feeling amongst many people that because that's not happening right now when they go to confession, that there's a problem. They've eminentized, haven't they? Haven't they eminentized and said, well, why isn't it right now? And you said, because we're not in the eschaton. Where peace and interior joy abound, there's also cheerfulness of mien and manner, and that's where it ought to be found. So if you have interior joy, getting back to the joy stuff here, if you have interior joy, like the MadTrad and the SadTrad and the BadTrad assure you that they do, this right here should also, they should have a cheerfulness of mien and a manner, and that it ought to be found there. Happiness presupposes peace, a threefold peace. Peace with God, peace with ourselves, peace with our neighbor. And I think the GladTrads, that's GladTrad 101, isn't it? People say, boy, you guys are happy all the time. You guys have this happiness about you. You're always carrying on and having fun. And by the way, when people say carrying on and having fun, yes, happiness generally has an element of fun to it. It's actually fun to be a happy person. It is. You can say, is it an element of fun that you're going through these hard times? Yes, in the same way that my sister is able to laugh and, in fact, have a degree of fun, right? It's at least somewhat delightful. Otherwise, it's a super shallow kind of happiness. It's only happy in the most abstract way. She's going through cancer. She's able to laugh. And maybe in a crazy way to say, the peace that passes all understanding and the idea of memento mori, that I too shall die, but I have a blessed hope to be resurrected, that I have that it almost makes this not entirely fun because it's painful, but I can imagine it being worse. We ought to heed the words of our Lord to his followers, be of good cheer. Life today is so strenuous that there is constant need of relief from its strain. So here we are. He's granting the argument that the SadTrads have the sad face and the MadTrads have the mad heart and the mad mind. And the rads have radicalism and the bads are so bad because everything around them is strenuous. Everything around them, day-to-day life, there's a constant need of relief from its strain. But what does our Lord talk about? Sunny, cheerful, gracious soul is like a sea breeze in sultry August, or like a draught of cool refreshment drained by fevered lips. And that's, I believe, from the author of the Floral Apostles. I don't have the quote at the bottom of that. It's also the best of moral and mental tonics. A glad heart maketh a cheerful countenance. So if you're glad, there's a connection. There's no radical disconnect. You never have to assure anybody. You don't have to say, no, I'm actually really glad right now. You don't have to. There's universals, by the way, with faces. There are certain things that God designed us in such a way and placed us in this social order in such a way within the earth that when we see other people, doesn't matter where they are, and they have certain scowling faces, we can assume. In fact, it's quite safe to assume that person might be angry at you. Eyebrows, the way eyebrows raise, the way people squint and look, the way they smile. It's one of the reasons why so many individuals don't like this right here. Having to wear this thing and have to do this. Because it's harder to see the smile on a face. Why? Because there's something about that. It's not just a signal. It's a signal that matters. It's a signal that speaks from something inside. And if it's not, you can see it in the eyes. It couples together. And you can see that. People have death in their eyes, but a smile on their face. But it comes out in a countenance. So if you're with somebody who's constantly doom and gloom, but that person is saying that, Catholicism brings true peace. It brings true happiness. He set us free. But they seem like a slave to misery. And their face is constantly in a frown or in an anger thing. Be honest with them and say that you don't actually believe that. You don't even believe them. You don't think that they actually have the peace that they're talking about. You'll see really quickly that they don't. A joyful mind maketh age flourishing, a sorrowful spirit drieth up the bones. So how do we acquire this? How do we bring ourselves to this place? If you're a Debbie Downer, right? Or Daniel Downer, a Gregory Gloom, if you're one of those folks, what do? We can all acquire greater cheerfulness by assuming the right mental attitude toward our environment and circumstances. Step number 1. So to assume this attitude, to embrace it and say, okay, I'm going to assume this attitude, a right mental attitude toward my environment. Where am I right now? What are the conditions? What are the circumstances that I live in? By looking habitually at the bright side of things. Whoa. By looking habitually at the bright side of things? How dare you? Are you saying never to look at the negative? And he'd be like, well, look, even in those things, you still got to look at the bright. God's still in control, isn't he? Don't we say that to people when they're dying? Isn't that a perfect example of still seeing the bright side in terrible things? By training ourselves to persistently to see the good and pleasant things in our common, everyday life. You will be a witnessing machine to do this. You will be the type of person that people will even be interested to know what's making you this way. And they're not going to ask what, corn cob, what farm did you go to get the corn cob that you have, a specific place. Some persons seem to have eyes only for disagreeable things that happen to come into their life. They forget to overlook their blessings, right? So they forget or overlook their blessings, and they brood over their trials and misfortunes. I think that one paragraph right there, keep it forever. In fact, I'll make it bigger here. Screenshot that bad boy. Okay? Screenshot it up. Not even joking. Some persons seem to have eyes only for the disagreeable things that happen to come into their life. They forget or overlook their blessings, and they brood over their trials and misfortunes. Which one was that again? There we go. Let us learn to look at life, not to find misery and discomfort in it, but to find goodness, gladness, and beauty. The author of The Art of Being Happy relates the following, okay? This anecdote. A poet was gazing one day at a beautiful rose tree. I like this story too. "What a pity," said he, "that these roses have thorns." A man who was passing by remarked, "Let us rather thank our good God for having allowed these thorns to have roses." I think it's an even prettier way of talking about the idea that the glass is half empty or half full. Because you're not just talking about proportion. You're talking about, look, things that give life, things that emanate a sweetness and an aroma amidst things that prick and hurt. And we all know a thorn bush is a thorn bush. It's not a pleasant thing. You don't want to go rolling around in that. And we douse ourselves with roses, right? Petals that we use to make aromatic the home, to make it smell beautifully, to make ourselves smell nice. How we also ought to thank God for the many joys and blessings that he grants us in spite of our sins, instead of complaining about the slight troubles that he sends us. And in the end, even those massive troubles that people talk about, the hierarchy or the politics or everything else, in the grand scheme of things, it is a passing moment. In the grand scheme of things, does that mean it's nothing to you relative to your existence in the moment? No, but you are passing too. Get a God's eye view, for crying out loud. A doctor who has made a specialty of nervous disease, so we read, has found a new remedy for the blues. His prescription amounts to this. So make sure to get out your pad and paper, your Paleocrat diary where you take notes. We need to start making those, by the way. Anthony, get on that, buddy. Wolfgang Louie, get on that. We got to start making Paleocrat diaries and making those available. So, okay, his prescription amounts to this. Keep the corners of your mouth turned up, and then you can't feel blue. Yeah. Keep the corners of your mouth turned up. The simple direction is smile. Keep on smiling. Don't stop smiling. Sounds ridiculous, doesn't it? It also sounds like part of the mantra here on the show. It sounds like the advisements of my daughter who said as much while dying of cancer and blazing a trail that impacted thousands and thousands of people. Did she impact those thousands because she was super gloomy constantly all the time, complaining of all the terrible things? No. Would people still have felt sympathy? Yes. But people didn't just feel sympathy. People were inspired to better action. It's why there are individuals who have her picture on their desks at their workplace, because it's a reminder that no matter what comes their way, they need to keep on smiling. Never give up. Is Mr. SadTrads' face going to be on somebody's desk to remind them? No matter what I do, no matter how hard I work, this guy reminds me to be angry. It's like Ron Swanson. But the reason why we like Ron Swanson is because it's kind of a joke. And because he's a comedian, he makes us laugh. And because there's elements of truth in that. Taken to an extreme, it's a caricature of a person. With endearing qualities. Of course, we love ourselves some Ron Swanson. But who's going to have the face of the MadTrad? Who's going to have a face of the BadTrad on their desk to inspire them to do amazing things in life, unless, of course, what they want to do in life is spread around the sickness, to spread around the disease. As if the place isn't raunchy enough. It doesn't smell bad enough. It isn't damaging to enough souls already. Oh, no. I'm going to super infuse it. I'm going to flex my muscles, and I'm going to go out there, and I'm going to make it a worse place. I'm going to leave this place worse than I found it, angrier than I found it, sadder than I found it. and dare I say, less Catholic than I found it. By the way, if you're a bad trad, mad sad, or sad, mad trad, bad sad, you're all bad sad. You're the bad sad mad. You're all those things all put together. You're all that stuff, right? It's all discombobulating. It's all messed up. If you're one of those folks and you say, I really don't like what he has to say about it, make a video about it. Make a video about it. Call me out. Show me that place. Show me those advisements to be the grumpy town. Show me those advisements where you should not have a cheerfulness of heart. Show me those advisements where you shouldn't see the silver lining because Christ is still shining behind the cloud. You tell me, you show me. You will come up empty-handed, son. You'll come up empty-handed. I got you, and in many cases, I got the guy here that also put together the missal that you like. And I bet part of you is wondering if maybe that's a modernist tool too. You're like, it was the greatest missal, but then all of a sudden I saw the GladTrads talking about it. And I realized that the guy that put it together is talking about politeness and cheerfulness and kindness and such. Don't know what to do with that missal now. Not angry enough. But he says, look, he said, it sounds ridiculous. Well, just try turning up the corners of your mouth, okay? There, just do it right now. You can't even do it. Try to do it and be mad. Try to do it and be mad. Watch. Even if you're trying, and I can do pretty good at keeping a straight face. Here we go. I can't. Because even if I'm trying to, I know I'm trying to. And then that's kind of funny. Well, why am I trying to be mad right now? I'm putting my mouth up. He says, now do it the other way. Draw them down. Note the effect. And you'll be willing to declare, there's something in that. There's something in that. So try it. Look at that. Let's see. Let's see here. How many a noble work, and this is good. We got about 10 minutes left or so. How many a noble work has been nipped in the bud by the blast of an unkind judgment? Think about it for a second. Have you ever thought, and I honestly, to be honest, I never really thought about it like this. Not the same way. But in those times where I was grumpy and mad and bad and sad and all sorts of rad, when I was that way, ratty, when I was that way, how many people were actually doing something that was an otherwise noble work, but that I kind of nipped it in the bud and I crushed it? Right? That it didn't, the vigor was lost. Now, they shouldn't have, right? They should have kept on keeping on. That's what we do here. We don't stop and slow down too long for the weirdos. We don't let that affect us that way because we're genuinely cheerful, because we are at peace with the Lord. We love the Lord, because we're at peace with our neighbors. We love the church. We love our Lord and our Lady. And we love this life in a way that we ought, that says we love this in a way that Christ came and he died, and that even all creation has been groaning for the revelation, right? For the revealing of people just like you and me. But how many times have we end up hurting people? Right here. By some kind of a criticism. How many a holy aspiration, destined to bear abundant fruit for God and souls, has been forced back into the poor heart from whence it had ascended, there to be stifled utterly and forever, leaving that heart, as the poet so graphically represents it, like a deserted bird's nest filled with snow, because unkindness robbed it. Think about it, because unkindness. You know, I see this a lot with the Wesleyan tendency of so many radtrads to despise the half-Christian. They don't learn as much from Augustine as they do from John Wesley. And it's tragic. And they don't learn from Ecclesiasticus. The lesson in Ecclesiasticus talking about, what about the person who's on his way? He started doing something good, but he's not all the way there. How do you deal with that? Do you crush him down? Smash him down? Or do you recognize what he's accomplished thus far? Do you encourage him to go further? Or do you go, well, you're only halfway there. You're not doing enough, buddy. And not in a way that's constructive, not in a way that's genuinely helpful from a heart that says, look, I'll not only encourage you, but I'm going to help you up. Instead of doing this, instead of doing that, I'm going to reach out my hand. And you'll see to my face the difference. Looking at somebody and looking in with eyes raised, mouth agape, saying, look, I will help you. There's a sincerity in saying, I will help you. Both hands. Come on, buddy. You're like way down there. Come on, I'm pulling you up. And we'll take your time. If you're slipping, I'm not going to say, oh, don't worry about it. We're going to do this right. And we're going to do it together. But these things are gone. These things are gone. You get it with new converts sometimes, you know, especially if they're popular. They come over and they find themselves in the faith, and all of a sudden they're still doing some of those things that they used to do. And there's this criticism from the angry brigade, right? The bad brigade. Sitting there, and they're all foaming at the mouth. Crazy loon birds. Violent maniacs. Sitting there, you're not doing enough. You're not really, truly Catholic. We get this even from, oh, you go to the Novus Ordo? How much then we may believe has been lost to the world of all that is good and great and beautiful through the instrumentality of unkindness. Kindness is but the outcome and exemplar of the divine precept, thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There's nothing we personally so much appreciate as kindness. We like others to think of us kindly, to speak of us kindly, to speak to us kindly, and to render us kindly actions and in a kindly manner. Now, we should know how to put ourselves in that place of others, and thus we should testify to them that kindliness that we value so much to ourselves. And these are some just ideas that he has. He has a bunch of them here at the end. There's only altogether, there's not many other, four slides left. And this is the only one on this one. Kindness has converted more sinners than either zeal, eloquence, or learning. And these three last have never converted anyone unless they were kind also. Let's see if I can get both of these things up here. Let me go ahead and get this one up here. And I'll get this one up here. We're going to go ahead and make it a little bit bigger. Oh, I don't want to do that big. Think of it again. This is why I talk about the apologetics of the GladTrads. It's no joke. People are like, well, where you get into the arguments and the syllogism? Kindness has converted more sinners than either zeal, eloquence, or learning. And these three last have never converted anyone unless they were kind also. Let me put an asterisk and say I can imagine that an unkind person using an argument that still played a role in conversion. I can imagine, but you know what else I can imagine? Shallow ground. What's the reason for why you came? What was it that drove you and motivated you? There's many different factors. It's not all one thing. But was there something special and unique about this? And not just that it was true, but that truth actually affected people. Affected people going through the common lot of man and going through things that were extraordinarily tough, emotional, love, loss, death. And yet somehow these people, they were able to go on. They were able even to celebrate, to realize, yes, it is death. Yes, there is a time to put on the black. There is a time to be sorrowful. But there's a time to keep on keeping on, to march forward. You have other reasons. I had this in my life. I could have lived the rest of my life in the despair, that sickness that leads to death of despair. I could have done it. I know guys who've lost their kids, who you look at them now and you go, dude, their life is just a wreck. Could have done it. Their marriage is broken. Their kids, their other kids, the remaining kids, are constantly seeing a news feed littered with the idea that this dad has no reason to live anymore because their kid is gone. You've got other kids. You wake up every day, God put you here, man. You have family, you got friends. If you don't, get your butt out of bed and go make some. Unless you're a hermit or something. Unless you're some kind of recluse. A proud man is seldom a kind man. Humility makes us kind. So you can see it in reverse, right? You can see that. A proud man is seldom a kind man. That doesn't necessarily mean that if you're kind, that there's not a kind of pride even in that. It can be the worldly, the stuff we talked about earlier, the people that want to be kind to everybody, but there's a loss of dignity and stuff like that. There's a loss, they violate their own conscience. But at the same time, we can look at this and say, proverbially, it's true. Humility makes us kind, and kindness makes us humble. So when you see people, and they're out there, and they're, bashing everybody left and right, bashing the Pope left and right, speculating left and right about everybody above them, about everybody around them, and they have this subtle idea, and maybe not so subtle, that they're part of the last little remnant on the planet, and that nobody else is any good. And that those people who smile, those ones are really irksome. You can bank on it, that those people are probably extraordinarily broken and proud. Pride. If a man habitually has kind thoughts of others, and that on supernatural motives, he's not far from being a saint. Last two. Last two. Oh, hold on. Let me go back here. Yeah. Our present humor in judging others, and this is so important, in judging other people. I'll just say it. Pope Francis. Cardinals, priests, bishops, reveals to us what our sentence would be if we died now. We are content. Let me see. Are we content to abide that issue? We ought to cultivate most sedulously the habit of kind interpretations. Men's actions are very difficult to judge. Their real character depends in a great measure, not entirely, on the motives which prompt them. And those motives are invisible to us. Appearances are often against what we afterward discover to have been deeds of virtue. What mistakes have we not made in judging other people? Have we not always found in our past experience that on the whole, our kind interpretations were truer than our harsh ones? How many times in life have we been wrong when we put a kind construction on a conduct of others? We shall not need our fingers to count those mistakes on. So if we're sitting there and you go, you wouldn't even need our fingers to count. Yeah, because we would know it. If we put a kind construct on it and say, look, I'm granting that person the benefit of the doubt on this. I'm saying I'm going to try to find an explanation for how that works. For how that would work. And at the end of the day, I can do what the Jansenists could not do. And that is to say, well, you know what? There's an element of this that on the one hand I must oppose. That otherwise it'd be a false sense of prudence. But there's a false zeal on the other side. And right now we're dealing with both, aren't we? A world that has a false sense of prudence, which is talked about, by the way, Pope Leo XIII, his encyclical on Christian citizenship, when talking about the way to address problems in the world and how to deal with members of the hierarchy, right? Your priests, your bishops, the cardinals, anybody, when they do something that is either an opinion that is worthy of censure. I think there's another word for that. We can call that heresy, for example. And the idea of doing something morally wrong publicly that people can see, that people can witness. He talks about how to react to that. And he doesn't say, have the false prudence that says it's A-okay, everything's fine. And on the other hand, the false sense of zeal that believes in pride, that you can just go up and start bashing the hierarchy and writing down with words, that even if you were correct, even if you were correct in your judgment about it, you still should not do it. Maybe that's just another instance where the Pope was wrong, but now you got to level that against Leo XIII. Maybe you should start wondering if maybe he also was a heretical Pope. Terribly unoriginal and very unimpressed. What can be more unkind than to communicate our low spirits? This is what I said. We're ending on this too. We got one more slide. That's it. We're ending on it. This is what we're talking about the guy in the beginning of the show, right? This is what we were talking about that cat that came in. What was his name, by the way? What was homeboy's name? Don't even care anymore. We all know. Okay, it was the guy at the beginning of the show. I only come in every once in a while to see this guy, but this guy's got a Protestant jive to him. Listen to this. And I said, what do you get out of that? What do you get out of going in places that you don't even like? And he did it twice in 3 days. He did it under a video on Monday, and he did it here, just to let everybody know, in case we didn't see his comment, that's what, he has it on the screen now. But it provided as a perfect example, right? He should have been here for this part. It's really tragic. They make sure that they come in and out because they know they're probably going to get schooled. What can be more unkind than to communicate our low spirits to others? To go about the world like demons, poisoning the fountains of joy. Last frame. And what does he say at the end? Have I more light because I've managed to involve those I love in the same gloom as myself? Do you? Do you have more light in your life because you've spread gloom around? Is that what it does for you? Do you dislike the contrast of the light on a hill compared to the doom and gloom that you embrace? And is your idea of how to fix the solution, rather than making your way up to the light on the hill, instead to say, I need to bring that light down and do a leveling trick? That's the leveling trick of the socialist, by the way. Oh, the littleness and the meanness of that sickly appetite for sympathy, which will not let us keep our tiny, how would you pronounce that? Lilliputian? Sorrows to ourselves. Why must we go sneaking about like some dishonorable insect? Don't you love? And look, he's not playing footsies with folks like this. People could say, well, why were you being so rude? Why were you using this as an example? Because this is a saintly example. Why must we go sneaking about like some dishonorable insect and feed our darkness on other people's light? We hardly know in all this whether to be more disgusted with the meanness, or more indignant at the selfishness, or more sorrowful at the sin. Holy cow. At the end of the day, all the people with the asterisk that said, oh, I'm joyful, asterisk. I'm cheerful, asterisk. I'm peaceful, asterisk. All those people who go around and every day are splattering the world, they're spamming the universe with negativity. Every single one of those people, we hardly know, the GladTrads, we hardly know in all of this, whether to be more disgusted with your meanness, more indignant at the selfishness, or more sorrowful at the sin. So also let us hide our pains and sorrows. It's a sorrowful thing. These would be things that would say, look, it's painful and sorrowful to look around and to go on Twitter and to see speculation 24/7 about things, people peeking into windows they have no business peeking into and saying, oh, look what I saw inside the window. They're like Noah's son peeking in on him being naked. Look at what I saw. That was a shame, by the way. The good sons came back walking backward to clothe their father. Those were the good sons. So we have reason to have pain and sorrow over this. It brings disrepute and disrespect on the church. It makes the task of evangelization even harder. It makes the idea of restoring all things in Christ, it makes that even harder. We have to overcome the kind of optic war that we have with the world. When people say, well, look, I know a lot of people who are really grumpy. They're Catholic people, but they're like the most unhappy people on the planet. We have to overcome you. And yet, we should hide our pains and sorrows. But while we hide them, let them also be spurs within us to urge us on to all manner of overflowing kindness and sunny humor to all those around us. You cannot stop us. We, if we embrace that, are unstoppable. Why? Because the light, it cannot devour the darkness cannot devour the light. The light is going to penetrate. In fact, the darker it gets, the worse it gets, the brighter these stars will shine. So let your light shine bright. If you're a GladTrad, if you're somebody who follows this show and you go, man, there's something about it. There's something about this program. There's something about this apostolate. There's something about this idea. There's an idea here, something bigger than the guy who one day shall die, who right now is talking into a mic. There's something bigger, and it resonates in me. I've missed it. Maybe you've wanted it all along. Shine bright. When the very darkness within us creates a sunshine around us, then has the Spirit of Jesus take possession of our souls. Rightly considered, kindness is the grand cause of God in the world. Where it is natural, it must forthwith be supernaturalized. Where it is not natural, it must be supernaturally planted. For what is our life? It's a mission to go into every corner it can reach and reconquer. For God's beatitude is unhappy world back to Him. It's a devotion of ourselves to the bliss of the divine life by the beautiful apostolate of kindness. Let us conclude. We have been speaking of kindness. Perhaps we might better have called it the Spirit of Jesus. I love you guys. Oh, I do. I am so grateful for all of you, by the way. Glad all of you were in the chat. I'm sorry I didn't converse with it back and forth. I had to get out of there. I had a lot to talk about. I apologize. I'll put together some, I'll take highlights, right? I'll do screenshots, and I will reply to many of them over at the Wolfpack chat over on Telegram. If you're not over there, what are you doing? What are you doing? You say, I don't want to add another app. Well, take an app off. Make yourself a deal. Say, look at your app and find an app that you never use. That's been nothing but a distraction. Nothing but something that's a bad thing. You get in fights or you're wasting time. It's not producing anything better in your life, okay? Find that app and get it the heck out of there. Make it go away. Delete. And I can promise you probably have a bunch. And when you delete all those, replace it with one. Prayer chain. People bumping prayer every single day. It is so powerful. The way prayer is the driving force of everything we do here. Everything. Prayer. Warriors for the Lord. Every day, all around the world. Record it so we can share together. And we can talk about it. We can pray together. You can download it in your car, do all of that. You have a book club that meets fortnightly every other week. Okay? We talk about books, about prayer. We've got a resource page with tons of things on hearing Mass and links and PDFs to books and everything else. And we have friends. And we have sunshine. Because we need that, don't we? Because the world is super dark. But it's better with us. Because we commit to this idea to never give up, to keep on smiling, and memento mori.
I wanted to make people dream bigger thoughts.